Hey guys, Mike Klingler here, and I just wanted to cover this topic because I see so many people struggling so much with if they should sign up with a program because they're afraid it's a scheme or it's a scam or it's a Ponzi scheme. Uh, this kind of applies across all business and marketing and the entire arena, but I'm focusing more within the context of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency because there's extraordinary opportunities within the cryptocurrency realm and being able to generate cryptocurrency commissions. But a lot of people, including myself, have been burned. I was very knowledgeable on these types of topics up until I entered into the cryptocurrency space and was introduced to new schemes within the cryptocurrency realm, and some of them turned out to be scams. I'm going to talk about the difference between a scheme and a scam. We're talking about Ponzi schemes, how it's not always black and white. I also want to caution you guys when you're out there looking for different programs and so forth, you're trying to analyze what's going on or figure out if something is a scheme, like a Ponzi scheme, or is it a legitimate scheme? Because there are legitimate schemes. Is it a complete scam? When you're determining all this, you're going to come across people that are great at marketing and they create content that's very negative towards any scheme that offers opportunity of really any type, and they'll call it a scam, and they'll say anything that has a referral marketing component is a Ponzi scheme. I want to break all this down so you see that a lot of that is bogus. There are ways to determine the risk. There are ways to be able to kind of categorize things so that you can make good decisions that are going to impact you positively. I'm basing all this off of over 30 years experience as a marketer and in business, and I had it very well figured out until I entered into the cryptocurrency space, and I got tricked a few times. I got burned a few times before I was able to kind of reassess and understand how to determine what a scheme and versus a Ponzi scheme is versus a downright scam. What you come to realize is there is no black and white, but there are things and models you kind of fall in, help you decide where one falls into to make good decisions. I'm going to cover some specific ones at the end of this. Daver Coin, some of you know that. BitConnect, a lot of you know that. Monetize Coin, USI Tech, Power of Weak Hands, Crypto World Evolution, Bitcoin. There are bankers, very well educated people calling that a Ponzi scheme. I'm going to talk about that. And then altcoins that don't have a working model yet, that just put up a white paper. Are those schemes? Are they Ponzi schemes? Are they downright scams? I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of you, not only for yourselves in determining if going the right direction with an opportunity is the right path for you, to be able to help you assess risk, realize it's not always black and white. Sometimes it is, and it's really clear that something's a scam. To help you be able to figure out how to assess this, and kind of have a resource here, this video that you could send people to if you're in an opportunity and someone asks that question. You can send them here, and they can kind of figure this out on their own. So let's look at a definition of a scheme. If you go look it up, here's one definition: a large-scale systematic plan or arrangement for attaining some particular object or putting a particular idea into effect. It gives an example, a clever marketing scheme. There's nothing negative about that. In and of itself, a scheme can very often be a very positive, just kind of arrangement or plan to accomplish something like generating cryptocurrency. It can be a scheme and be very positive. Let's look at another version of this, though. Then there's Ponzi scheme, very negative connotation. We see the pyramid up here. Are all pyramid hierarchical structures Ponzi schemes? Are they all, every Ponzi scheme is a scam, but not all schemes are scams. We're going to cover this. A Ponzi scheme is named after Charles Ponzi he died in 1949, who carried out fraud. It's fraud. The Ponzi scheme is defined as a form of fraud in which belief in the success of a non-existent enterprise is fostered by the payment of quick returns to the first investors for money invested by later investors. So if you look at this pyramid, it's saying the chart, you probably can't read this, but this says the chart shows how pyramid schemes can become impossible to sustain. So here's the problem with these. And Ponzi was one of the first ones that is known for putting together this kind of scheme, which is in this case a scam, a Ponzi scheme, where he acted as if there was this enterprise, this business that didn't really exist. When all it was he was taking the money coming in from new people at the bottom of the pyramid to pay people up above, and the people up above making all this money thinking, wow, this is amazing, he's an amazing investor, or whatever it is he's claiming to be doing. But really all he's doing is getting more people coming in, giving him money, and using that money to pay people above him. That's a Ponzi scheme. That's a scam. You definitely don't want to touch anything like that. But a lot of people immediately assume, including intelligent people online who write articles about different programs, they'll immediately assume that it's a Ponzi scheme just because there's like an MLM, multi-level marketing referral component, and that's bogus. That's BS. And there's laws in place that state that. Like in the United States, one of the most strict of all places in the world, there are laws in place that establish what a Ponzi scheme is and what it isn't. And there's lots of very successful multi-level marketing companies that use the multi-level marketing model, which is shaped like a pyramid, that are defined not as Ponzi schemes. But there are some that are downright scams. Again, I'm going to help you kind of determine what all of this means, what it is, and help you assess an opportunity and not be tricked by marketers out there who write these scary articles about something being a scam, something being a Ponzi scheme, just because it uses the pyramid structure of an MLM referral, opportunity commission structure. They call it a scam and they call it a Ponzi scheme for that reason alone, when that's bogus. And all they're doing, most of those people are doing, is using, like this gloom and doom approach to attract leads and build their network and build their audience to sell whatever it is they're selling. So be very careful not to just assume that just because something has a referral network component, like a multi-level marketing component, that it's a Ponzi scheme. That's not the case at all. Now, the actual definition here is of a Ponzi scheme, a form of fraud in which basically someone sets up a non-existent enterprise, a company that doesn't even exist, making it sound like they're selling a product or they're selling a service or a financial service, and they're doing legitimate business, but really they're just taking money from people at the bottom and putting it at the top. This gets more nuanced. I want you guys to understand this. Here's another definition from Wikipedia, a little bit different. A Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent investment operation where the operator provides fabricated reports, kind of similar, but not focusing on the enterprise, but like fabricating reports, and generates returns for older investors through revenue paid by new investors rather than from legitimate business. So really kind of saying the same thing, but another way, emphasizing here that they're kind of showing this misinformation. They're making up bogus stories. There are people that said USI Tech was doing that. We're going to address that. Then the last definition that comes up from Investopedia: Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent investing scam promising high rates of return. This one's a little different. High rates of return with little risk to investors. The Ponzi scheme generates returns for older investors, and it's saying kind of the same thing, that people are coming in, new people are coming in because they're hearing about these great returns, and the organization or the person's using that money to pay people that were already in. Now, I can see why a lot of people might say that's what USI Tech was. You can be the judge of that. We're going to talk a little bit more nuance and detail about it, and there's some other programs I want to talk about as well. Let's look first, though, at this pyramid structure. When I typed in just like corporate structure, looks like a pyramid. And it didn't show all the people that would be at the bottom that were employees and lower level managers, but at the top you have the president. Underneath the president you have, here's the heading of basically upper management. This is showing an example of upper management in marketing, upper management in sales over here. And then underneath them, they have lower level managers. Underneath them are lower level managers. And we just keep going with, lesser and lesser paid, lower paid employees as you go down in larger numbers. So the shape of a pyramid as a organizational structure in itself isn't bad. We need to point that out. And we also should note that the president at the top makes more money than the people at the bottom. So that concept in itself isn't bad, right? You go to a corporation, the people at the top make more money than the people at the bottom. Here, Jane and Abram, the higher level management, make more than the middle management, make more than the lower management, make more than, they don't show them here, but the lower level employees. Lower level meaning less responsibility, likely less skills, and they get paid less. So again, the pyramid structure in itself isn't bad. And the idea that someone at the top makes more than people at the bottom in itself isn't bad. It's really important to understand that that's not the issue. because that's everywhere. And when you type in hierarchy of investment banking, you get images that look a lot like a pyramid. Here's managing director, vice president, associate analyst, and it's showing the larger volume of employees who have a lower pay scale at the bottom again. So let's look again at this pyramid in a bigger picture. Again, this chart shows how pyramid schemes can become impossible to sustain, which is the issue. A lot of people took issue with BitConnect, USI Tech. We're going to talk about that in more detail. You may or may not think that those were pyramids. We're going to talk about it. Again, we're going to use those as examples. This isn't to spotlight them as bad or evil or anything like that. I want this to move beyond that common conversation and into kind of analyzing several different programs, some of them quite different from those, and really for you to get a handle on all of this and be able to assess opportunities better. I'm going to admit, part of my education and being able to bring this information to you was learning the hard way. Many years ago, decades ago, I got lucky and I was able to assess these kinds of things before cryptocurrency very easily. When cryptocurrency was introduced, I was tricked early on and I got burned. But it didn't take getting burned more than a couple of times. Unfortunately, it did take more than once before I started to be able to assess these things. And I'm going to talk about how it can be complicated for those that want to live on the edge of opportunity. You have to take risks. And so, it's easy just to call everything a scam and stay away from everything that resembles opportunity on anything shaped like a pyramid. But then you're going to be, removing yourself from really any great leverage, any great potential for massive returns. And you should not be afraid of that unless you just want to stay away from all risk and have a job and so forth. But those of you who want to take advantage of opportunities, you have to be able to assess this stuff on a deeper level and not be afraid of taking risks and making mistakes. But this information, I think, is going to help you make a lot less mistakes. And hopefully you benefit from some of the mistakes that I learned from without you having to learn the hard way. And if you had made mistakes, but you didn't really understand, what mistake did I make there while other people are doing great over here, looks like the same kind of thing, we're going to get into the details of that. This really helps us get into it because this shows that just because someone who's highly educated and informed, some of the most informed business minds in the world, just because they think something is a pyramid scheme doesn't mean it necessarily is in and of itself at face value. Former Wells Fargo CEO calls Bitcoin a pyramid scheme. So he's literally calling Bitcoin a pyramid scheme. It's important to understand. Some people think Bitcoin's a pyramid scheme. Now, if you believe that, that's fine. I absolutely do not. This is what I mean by it's not so black and white. JP Morgan's Diamond says Bitcoin is a fraud. Another guy, highly educated people, graduated from the best universities. You may not hold, some of the highest universities in high regard or high esteem. I certainly question what they teach and the motives of these guys, but it helps you see that, hey, just because you go online and research a program or an opportunity and it says it's a pyramid scheme, those guys are likely a lot less educated and a lot less experienced than these guys. So you can't just take it at face value because someone writes some scathing article that something is a pyramid scheme. You've got to go deeper than that. These guys that are highly educated, that are highly experienced in business are calling Bitcoin a pyramid scheme, and lots of them. Here's Rickards. Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. Summary, this is the only topic where I agree with Jamie Dimon, says currency guru Jim Rickards. So here's a guy who doesn't even usually agree with Jamie Dimon. I call Bitcoin a Ponzi with no one in charge. There's no Madoff, but it's working that way. Bitcoin has not been combat tested in a business cycle. So he has this rationale, and a lot of these smart guys do that have a lot of experience in business, a lot of rationale behind why Bitcoin in their mind is literally a Ponzi scheme. Again, this proves you need to step back before you just go read some article from who knows who with whatever motive, probably just to attract leads by putting out negative marketing and attract people to their network and get more views for themselves. These people that are putting out negative information about these programs and opportunities, that in and of itself is not doing your due diligence, is not doing your research just because they said something was a Ponzi scheme. Because here you have experts in business saying that Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme. Of course, many experts that are also just as educated or more so and just as experienced are saying Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme. So it is not black and white. We're going to break it down. So again, coming back to this, is Bitcoin, here's why they think Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme. I do not. It's more nuanced than that. But they think, well, there's no product or service, and the value of Bitcoin, it really has no value. They're saying there's really no value beyond just making money. And I can see that point. I can understand their context, but again, it's more subtle than that. It is more nuanced than that, I should say. So they're saying, well, the value of Bitcoin is going up only because more people are coming into it. And if people stop coming into it, then the price will collapse. Well, that's kind of true in and of itself, but it's early in the process. And this is what the intelligent people on the other side are saying. It's early. Bitcoin is early. Like, of course, it's a natural part of a life cycle of a developing industry. Bitcoin is the first really a blockchain technology to be introduced in a massive scale to the marketplace. And right now it owns the branding. In other words, it dominates the branding. And so it's kind of leading the way in terms of people kind of starting out with Bitcoin and getting to understand the blockchain and how it works through Bitcoin. And even though it's clunky, and even though we can't trade fast with it, it's not real functional yet. The intelligent people that are saying it's not a Ponzi say, yeah, it looks like one perhaps to someone not paying attention, but in actuality, what you're looking at is just the early stages of the development of an entirely new industry. And while Bitcoin may or may not be the granddaddy of them all in the end, just like Yahoo used to be the biggest search engine, but then Google came in years later and dominated, maybe something like that will happen, but it doesn't mean Bitcoin in itself is a Ponzi. And maybe the price is growing extremely fast right now. A lot of smart people think, when I say smart, I mean like the peers of Jamie Dimon and some of these big bankers that are on the other side of the coin who say Bitcoin is not a Ponzi. They're arguing that, hey, it might look like that, but what's actually happening is it's starting to replace gold. We're moving into a new era. So my point is there's these different nuances and perspectives and paradigms and ways of understanding something, and you can't just take someone's word at face value, and you certainly can't just go search a program or opportunity online and decide from that if something, just because somebody said something was a Ponzi scheme. Really, really important. It's more nuanced than that. I want to cover it so you guys are more educated on the topic, and so you have a resource to send people to if you're promoting a program and there's some ding dong out there who wrote an article that's like really negative about it, probably just for their own benefit to attract their audience, as I was saying. And you could send people to this video or post it on your YouTube account and educate people to make their own decisions. Again, I'm not telling people what is and what is not. I'll share my paradigm, but what I'm really giving you is a way and a model and approach to be able to assess these things and assess the risk of things and understand it's not always black and white. Sometimes it is. I'm going to cover that, but it's not always black and white. Okay, so here's some things, and it might sound like a tongue twister or a mind twister sometimes, but there's some solid foundational stuff underneath this. Schemes are not necessarily scams. We defined schemes earlier. Schemes are organized plans to accomplish something. A scheme can be very positive. Banks use schemes all the time. Credit cards are schemes. Student loans are schemes. And while I think a lot of those are scams, because that's my paradigm, people in their traditional, operating in the traditional world don't think of those things. Don't think of student loan program or health insurance as scams. I see a lot of them as scams. What people see as traditional and acceptable, but not everybody does. What we have to understand is schemes are not always scams. All of those things are schemes. So are every network marketing opportunity. So are affiliate marketing opportunities in the financial industry, in the banks. These are all schemes, but they're not all scams. Some of them are. We'll talk about how to tell the difference as we go here. Schemes don't have products or value. So this is one way that I've chosen to look at things to help me kind of wrap my mind around something and assess something. There's lots of ways you can look at it, but I like to think of, there's two ways to say it. You could say some schemes have products and they're in a more evolved scheme, or you could just say schemes don't have products. Like a scheme, just a purest scheme is one of making money, a plan to make money, but there's no product or service involved. And there's a lot of stuff going on in cryptocurrency, right? And that's when you know that you're in a riskier area. When you see a scheme, when you see an opportunity or a program to make cryptocurrency or make money, and I'm going to focus on cryptocurrency here, to make cryptocurrency, and there's no product or service, then you know you're in really you're on thin ice as far as it being legitimate. Now, it doesn't mean that it isn't. I'm going to talk about Power of Weak Hands, one program that kind of new innovations are happening, you see. And that's what threw me off early on. I got tricked a few times early in cryptocurrency because new innovations are coming in and it makes it less, the old models, the traditional models, less relevant. Talk more about that. But I like to think of, if something is a scheme with a product, it's very different. You're in safer water. Not always, because it'd be a fake product. It could still be a scheme with a fake product. But if you do have a scheme with a legitimate product, you know that you're much more solid ground for generating the cryptocurrency commissions or the money through that scheme. I would say that schemes without products is another way of looking at this, are much more risky. Talk more about that. Not always so black and white. Consider ICOs and altcoins, Bitcoins. We talked about Bitcoin. ICOs, new cryptocurrencies being introduced all the time. In fact, the SEC just came out with like a fake website to educate the public. They made it look like a new ICO with all these promises for returns. And it was an example of a scam. A downright scam. And a lot of ICOs and a lot of altcoins are downright scams where they're pretending that they're working towards having a product, but really the whole scheme is built around bringing in massive money for themselves. And then they kind of think maybe they'll develop something, maybe they won't, but the emphasis is their intentions are so heavily on making the money or, making the returns that the likelihood of them following through and finishing their white paper or their vision is very low to none, sometimes absolutely none. And that's when it starts to move over into a scam. But it's not always black and white because maybe they don't really have the skills to pull off their vision, but they're bringing in $80 million for their ICO. Maybe they're kind of trying to because they got $80 million and they want to cover their butt. So there's this, but that's a big difference between a really experienced team, right? Who has got the experience to build the vision that they put in their white paper. These things you got to think about. Smart contracts like Power of Weak Hands, lending platforms like Davercoin and BitConnect, high yield investment programs at USI. I'm going to cover those programs specifically and some others to help you figure this stuff out. Again, it gets shadier and shadier as you move further and further away from having a product or service beyond just making money or crypto. So like in USI, for example, the product was just making crypto. That's when you're in risky territory. Does that mean they were purposely scamming people? I'm not going to say that. That does not necessarily mean that, but you're getting in riskier territory, and I'm going to cover some of the issues with that and other programs that people have called some of these programs out on. And I talk about which ones are solid, which ones are questionable, so you can move forward with eyes wide open, make good decisions, and educate others. Again, you don't want to be afraid of opportunity just because there's risk of these things. You want to educate and inform yourself and make good decisions and not beat yourself or others up who made mistakes. That's the other thing. Like, we live in a world where we have the opportunity to pursue entrepreneurial endeavors, to empower ourselves through opportunity. There's an incredible opportunity with the blockchain and cryptocurrency. There's going to be a lot to navigate, a lot of falling down and getting back up. But you don't want to beat yourself up, and you certainly shouldn't be afraid of embracing all of that and figuring it out, because if you don't, you're just locking yourself into following those who do. Like the jobs you have, that you're very limited financially, you're very limited in what you can do in your life, and so you don't want to be afraid of this stuff. You want to educate yourself. And there's pyramid structure. MLM component alone doesn't make it a Ponzi. So again, just because it's a pyramid structure, just because there's MLM doesn't mean it's a Ponzi. Okay, so again, I want to talk about Davercoin, BitConnect, Monetize Coin, USI Tech, Power of Weak Hands, Crypto World Evolution, Bitcoin, altcoin without a working model. I want to talk about each of those things. Before we jump into that, let me just give you this definition again. A scheme is a large-scale systematic plan and arrangement for attaining some particular object or putting a particular idea into effect. A clever marketing scheme is an example it gave. Then Ponzi scheme, before I cover those programs, I just want to remind you of these definitions. A form of fraud in which belief in the success of a non-existent enterprise is fostered by the payment of quick returns to the first investors from money invested by later investors. Interesting. Some of you in some of those programs I'm going to cover here in a second might go, And another definition by Wikipedia, kind of the same, but another angle, kind of just helps us click before we cover this. A Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent investment operation where the operator provides fabricated reports and generates returns for older investors through revenue paid by new investors rather than from legitimate business activities or profit of financial trading. So they're given a lot of like reports and a story and all that to get people to invest in. Really just the money's coming from the new people. And when there's no more new people, like this image up here in the upper right hand corner is showing, when there's not enough new people to support the old people, it collapses. And then they might tell you a story about what happened that isn't actually true. Ponzi scheme, last definition, a Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent investing scam promising high rates of return with little risk to investors. So the interesting thing is USI did say there was risk, but that wasn't the culture that they fostered. So we're going to talk about that. A Ponzi scheme generates returns for older investors, and it doesn't finish here, but by bringing in new investors. So kind of the same thing, hitting it from a different way. So let's break these down now. You may not know all of these programs. Some of them are of the past and did what we call an exit scam. Some of them are still hanging on and people think they're scams and others don't. And others, people on the outside might think they're scams, but a lot of these are proving to be, or some of these are proving to be really legitimate. And some of these are absolutely solid. I would say Bitcoin's solid, but my point is, but it's up for debate. Some of the most intelligent people in the world with experience in banking, like Jamie Dimon, who aren't idiots by any stretch of the imagination, call Bitcoin a Ponzi, a pyramid scheme, a fraud. So you got to put it in context. Let's talk about Davercoin. A lot of you know what Davercoin was. I'm going to talk about Davercoin and BitConnect at the same time because they were the same model. Their model was set up where you would put in cryptocurrency, right? And then you were promised returns to be able to get more cryptocurrency back. And that was the culture that they fostered. That was what they kind of had the front end marketers. They didn't talk a lot about it, but they had the front end marketers talk a lot about it. And it created this culture that people thought if they put their Bitcoin in, that was the whole point, you would get more back. But they set the model up that if at any time the pyramid started to fall apart, and it was they would run off with everyone's Bitcoin. So people were giving them their Bitcoin and then they were paying these returns. But so you might, let's say, put in $20,000 of Bitcoin into Devorcoin or BitConnect, and you're starting to get these returns every day, and it seems like a lot. And at first, people would get tons back, and then you put more in. And a lot of people thought people were very successful, and some were with it, and were angry at them when it all fell apart. People who were promoting it, who didn't really know it was a pyramid, or they may have thought it might be, but everyone involved should have thought it might be. Like nobody really knew for sure. That's the whole point of all of this. Like you don't really know for sure what their intentions are. And it was a new concept. So some people just absolutely knew, but those same people usually are really negative towards all referral marketing that's paid on multi-levels. So you can't put much stock in them if you're a person that realizes that some multi-level programs are fantastic. So it is not black or white. Some people act like they know it all and they knew. And that's easy to say if you say no to any referral marketing opportunity. The cryptocurrency opportunities that came along kind of fooled some people. They fooled me. I knew that the risk was there, but I just kind of, I trust humanity a lot. And it's difficult for me to believe that everybody, like both BitConnect and Davercoin, are going to exit scam people. It just seems so bizarre that there would be like this large number of people doing that. So I got burned by, not BitConnect, but I got burned by Davercoin. BitConnect, for whatever reason, I was able to see through that, but I wasn't with Davercoin. And it's maybe because I interacted with the owner. And so I just trusted him with what he told me. I think that's what happened there. Because I brought up my concerns with BitConnect. I didn't join BitConnect because I felt it was a pyramid. So for whatever reason, I got tricked with Devorcoin. But they were models that were set up in such a way. So I think that these were, you could define these as Ponzi schemes because they were set up, the whole model was set up where they could leave, and it was in a way that looked like it was protecting themselves, but they ended up taking off with a lot of people's Bitcoin and making it look like, it's not their problem. Now, monetized coin follows a similar model. But here's where things get interesting. I've been following this organization. I have Bitcoin in there and I'm getting returns on. And these guys their intentions are in the right place. Like they're trying to do it right. I'm not saying you should do monetized coin. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, to me, it's very different than the other two because of the intentions. So in addition to that, the people behind monetized coin are now creating like something of value, a utility token, a token that can actually be used and be a legitimate token because they're seeing the lending, they're seeing also the flaws of the lending platform, the limitations of it. And so intentions kind of come into play here too. Now, it's high risk because at this time, monetized coin doesn't have a product beyond you put in Bitcoin and you expect a higher return back. But again, because their intentions seem to be different, they've been lasting longer. Does that mean that I'm not being fooled or tricked there too? No, could be. But again, something that's very different. It hasn't come to fruition yet, so who knows? But they appear to be creating a whole new platform, and you can kind of tell someone's intentions by what they're focusing on. Like they're transparent and open about the flaws of the lending platform. They're transparent and open about things that Devorcoin and BitConnect never would have been, and they're emphasizing and focusing on what they're creating now, which puts them in a different ballpark. That doesn't mean you should be involved with things like that. I'm just trying to help you assess these things. Then there's USI Tech. Now, what I don't know is if USI Tech is more into the category of monetized coin or more in the category of Devorcoin and BitConnect. The jury's still out for me. I know some of you think I'm an idiot for not knowing that they're a scam still. I do think that they exaggerate. I do think that they're promoter personalities, and sometimes they can stretch the story out and just they can communicate what they're working on and what they're doing in a way where a lot of people that are real literalists will look at, idealists will look at it and go, oh, that's just BS, that's a scam. Whereas people that have been in the marketing world might give them a little bit more slack and say, well, they thought they could hit that timeline, but they couldn't. And people who are a little bit more technologically savvy might catch them on things that they're BSing on. It's in that murky water. Knowing what I know now, I would never be getting involved with USI Tech with what I know about them, because to me, it doesn't look like they're able to ever hit their deadlines, and it does seem like they kind of make up stories to cover tracks and make things sound a little bit more amazing than maybe they really are. That's just my perspective. You might have a different perspective. That doesn't mean I'm not rooting for them to succeed, so that more people, the people that had given them and trusted their Bitcoin, get it back. I just want to be honest with you here and say that it just seems like they stretch things. They kind of get a little bit too, I think, much either in their imagination or it's completely purposeful. A lot of people think absolutely it's a scam. I'm not ready to go there. I'm just not. But I can understand why people would feel that way. Power of Weekends is a little bit different. These guys created what's called a smart contract where it's decentralized. This means that no individuals actually control the money. The Bitcoin goes into what's called a trustless contract, and this is like the technology behind Ethereum, which is one of the most well-known, commonly used altcoins. The concept is it's a trustless contract, meaning you don't need to trust a person or a group of people. And this is a whole new, evolutionary concept of how business can be done, where there's no centralized location where there needs to be trust in a bank or a group of people to put your money there, but you're just trusting the contract and the programming itself to do all the job, and the money goes into the contract. That's the point behind it. And this is an evolutionary concept. This is new, and this is where things get, I think, safer than some of these other models, because now you're talking about not having to entrust your Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or money with individuals who can run off with it or do screwy things with it. And instead, you're trusting a contract that works as it says it does. And you have these programmers that come in that are, third party that audit it and report on it. There's risks that someone could hack it. That's the case with all of these cryptocurrency systems, the exchanges, et cetera. And we've seen that happen. Mt. Gox, for example, tens of millions, if not more, in Bitcoin were stolen. This is a couple years ago. there's been small little hacks into Binance, although it seems like that's all been contained and dealt with. So this is an issue across the board. But the longer a smart contract is living, and it's got all this, like in this case, Power Week Hands has all this Ethereum in there. The longer that it's not hacked, the more you start to realize, wow, maybe the auditors were right, and it's dead on and it's secure. And once you have a smart contract that is secure, it is a very, very safe way to go, because nobody is controlling it. And this takes us out a little bit outside of the normal risks or the common risks of a pyramid or a Ponzi or a scammy scheme. I really feel like it moves us into a new realm. It's a new concept, but I really feel like the smart contracts are a little bit different and something to watch, because again, you don't have people who control it or manage it. You've got a smart contract that I'm not going to describe the power of weak hands. That's not what this is about. But in this case, it's a little bit. Once it's a little bit different. These smart contracts are different. We have a decentralized platform, but of course, you can be tricked there. I saw people copy the power of weak hands. They cloned it, and there's always different clones out there that are branded differently. And people would say, oh, it's basically the same thing, but it's better. And all they did was copy the smart contract, but they tweaked things so they could steal Ethereum from it and stuff. So you still have to be very, very careful. And that's the problem with some of these things. Okay, crypto world evolution puts us on a whole nother boat. And I know some people out there will say, oh, it's a scam because it has a referral marketing component and a whole bunch of people are making all this crypto, so it must be a scam. That's just BS. The reality is, crypto world evolution is one of the most highest of integrity models of ways of generating cryptocurrency commissions, because it has a product. I talked about this earlier. It has a product that people would want to use even if there wasn't a way to make cryptocurrency. And that's really your litmus test for knowing if a scheme is a scam or where the risk is. Again, some of it's so difficult to ascertain, right? If something is actually a scam, some of it more obvious to others than some. But in this case, you can say that the risk is much lower and you can feel much safer about it because there's an actual product that people would use anyway, even if there wasn't the opportunity to generate cryptocurrency commissions. So if you can remember that definition, you know that you can be in a pretty safe place. Again, I'm not saying that all schemes without products are bad. Like Power of Weak Hands doesn't have a product beyond just the smart contract. You put Ether in it and it pays Ether dividends. But because it's decentralized, I feel like it's really safe. Some of the lending and high yield investment programs like these can get dangerous, but like I said, monetized coin, I feel like it is leaning towards being a higher integrity level of leadership behind it. Doesn't mean I won't be proven wrong, not recommending it. These are some of the older school models that I think are going on the way out. In fact, the leader of monetized coin, the guy that started it, admits that, and that's why I said he's creating a new, business model and communicating people through that. That's where I'm saying that's not where, that's where it's not so scammy, because he's actually guiding people forward. US ITech was trying to lead people to a new business model, which again is where that one seemed like the intentions were a lot better than Davercoin or BitConnect, where they had this exit scam planned. US ITech was at least trying to innovate, and then the regulators came in and I think chased away their investors and chased away the big players that they were partnering with, that were going to do some of these amazing innovative things with, and that caused things to really get difficult. But the fact they're still fighting for it and stuff, that has me believing they're a lot different than a Davercoin or a BitConnect. But maybe, looking back, a very high, and I always knew it was a high risk endeavor. Power Week Hands is very different because it's a smart contract, decentralized, no centralized group of people managing it. Crypto World Evolution, a different playing field altogether, because you're talking about a real product that people would buy and use anyway, their auto trading bot. I know there were a lot of people that tried the auto trading bot during the bear market. They didn't understand how to use it, didn't do well with it, and so they immediately screamed scam. But if you understand how to use it, and it's not that complicated, and certainly in a bull market, extraordinary returns, but it's a legitimate product. It's a legitimate product that helps you leverage trading. And because of that, just because it's a referral network and you can make a lot of crypto referring people through a hierarchical MLM type structure, that doesn't mean it's a scam. In fact, because it has a great product that people would want aside from the opportunity to make money, you know that it's actually one of the most legitimate opportunities available. And any scheme with a product that people really want that can pay big returns is something that you definitely want to look at if you're looking for opportunity. Bitcoin, my perspective, my paradigm I explained earlier, would not call it a scam. I thought it was in the early years. Was I right? Was I wrong? Well, I mean, if it would have turned out not working out, I would have been right, but it would have been the same thing that it was. And since it turned out working out, it turned out that my decision and my assessment wasn't right. That I thought it was a scam. I thought it was a scheme that was scammy. I thought it would never work out. I thought it was pyramid-y, would never have utility. A lot of the things that you see naysayers still saying, some of them saying today. And so I didn't buy into it in 2012 when I had numerous opportunities. Was I right or wrong? I don't think really it's about right or wrong always, particularly like in a Bitcoin's case. I didn't see where it could go, and so I missed it then. Now I get it. I get what it's representing, the blockchain. I get that it controls leads in the branding, and I understand where it's all going. Once I understood the blockchain, I understood the value of Bitcoin. So just because I assessed Bitcoin as a scam back in 2012 doesn't mean I was right or wrong, because if it would have turned out failing and a bunch of people made off with a bunch of money and a bunch of people more people lost money, I would have been right that it was a scam. But it's not about that always. It's not about black or white. It's about assessing these things and making decisions and being able to figure out what's the value behind it. Like with the power of weak hands, there's real value behind the smart contract concept. It's a little bit more nuanced and understanding, but there's real value there somewhere. Bitcoin, same thing, even though there's not a product or service with either of these. Crypto World Evolution is more black and white because you do have a product. These old school ones, I mean, they were fun to play with, but they were risky, and I got burned. And knowing what I know now, wouldn't have put nearly as much Bitcoin as I did into them. Still playing around with a little bit with monetize, and I like the returns that I'm getting on a regular basis. And I trust the owner, and I see that they're moving, kind of leading people into a different model and being transparent. You got to make these assessments, but don't just think everything's black or white, and don't just listen to some stupid article that you read that is negative on anything that offers great opportunity. You're going to miss a lot that way. Altcoins without a working model, we talked about that. A lot of people think those are scams, pyramid schemes in a sense, because it's just bringing in new money, and the people that got in earlier, the tokens or the coins are going up in value. And so in that way, really, if there's no working model and they don't have an intention to create something of value, or they don't have the skills to, and it's just a bunch of BS, or just raising like $80 million just with a story with no real ability to follow through, I think you get into pyramid scheme territory there. And it's kind of funny. You got a lot of people being really hard on people in Crypto World Evolution, people being really hard on people in Power of Weak Hands. You got, people out there who trade in altcoins being really hard on people that were in USI Tech or BitConnect, even saying you guys were scammers because you were promoting this. And again, I never promoted BitConnect, but I think it's really unfair that people that are trading altcoins are being hard on these other people and judging them and so forth. It's really ridiculous when they're investing in altcoins and oftentimes pumping and pushing those altcoins and talking about how great they are. When you go read the white paper, you realize the company probably doesn't have a prayer to fulfill their promise, and it's probably going to collapse. There's a lot of great altcoins, by the way, but there's a lot of scammy ones. And a lot of the people that have made a lot of money in cryptocurrency who are really negative and mean towards people that are in the cryptocurrency commission generating space with these other some of these other programs. Granted, some of them were turned out to be god awful, some of them, but they shouldn't be so hard on them, because they're in programs or investing in tokens and coins that are making money, when you can look closely at the white paper and realize those are probably pyramid schemes as well. Each individual has to make their own decision, is my point. You need to be a little bit more educated before you just buy into what somebody's telling you. There's lots of bankers telling you Bitcoin is a pyramid scheme. There's lots of people online that are going to write articles telling you that any program that offers this networking affiliate multi-level compensation plan is a scam, which is totally bogus and untrue. My point is, look, if you want the safest opportunities that still offer incredible leverage in terms of paying cryptocurrency commissions, look for things like Crypto World Evolution that have a product. Doesn't have to be them, but any program or opportunity that has a product behind it that people would want to use anyway, that isn't just a financial return. That's a really big one. If you can see that, you know you got something solid and stable. It can't be a scam in that if there's a product or service that people actually want to purchase besides just making the money. In this case, they sell software that helps you trade in a higher leveraging way. Just like hundreds of trades for you at one time. Managed micro trades, is it a guarantee? No, that's the point. They tell you there's not a guarantee. You know it's a scam if they're promising a guarantee of returns. But if you got a product or service that's legitimate besides just making money, and helping market that can make you commissions in a leveraged way, you know you've got a pretty solid deal. Then you've got these programs like these smart contracts with Power Week hands, very interesting, decentralized, takes a lot of the risk out that used to exist, whole new concept. So lots to think about there. As I close out, I hope this was helpful into getting you thinking a little bit more deeply and in a more nuanced way about what is a scheme versus what is a scam. Some schemes are completely legitimate. Some schemes are scams. Some are Ponzi scams or Ponzi schemes, but many are not. And also, there's a lot of opinion that can be a different opinion even among educated people, right? Like Jamie Dimon and other bankers thinking Bitcoin's a fraud and Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme, while other intelligent bankers and experienced people are saying it's absolutely not. You have to be able to put it in context. I gave you some tips and pointers, particularly looking for one that has a real product or service behind it that isn't just money or crypto, but actually a product or service that people want and they would buy or use anyway, even if there wasn't an opportunity. That really minimizes risk if you want to look for an easy way to assess these things. But don't just knock down every opportunity because someone online said it was a Ponzi. Hopefully I've given you enough information now to realize it really doesn't mean squat what someone's saying in that regard. For those interested in what I do to generate cryptocurrency commissions, I have a system that I've generated that I use, and I don't make a bunch of money with the system, but I let people use the system to generate cryptocurrency commissions who want to do so to be able to build your Bitcoin or altcoin portfolios using the cryptocurrency commissions that you generate with the system. And I offer it to those completely free if you're too broke to help contribute to supporting the system. So if you're so broke you can't even help us, support the system, we still let you in and use it. So you really can't go wrong there. And we don't make you buy a product or service if you can't afford it. We give you a leg up. And those of you who are leaders or marketing influencers or know a little bit about what's going on, you can really leverage this thing to do extraordinarily well. Okay, so if you're interested in that, there's a link below this video. Go ahead and click on it. Come on in. It's a very comprehensive system, but easy for you on your end to get through and understand. I think you'll be very, very interested in what it offers to help you gain leverage in generating cryptocurrency commissions in a streamlined way and leads that you can use in other ways. But cryptocurrency commissions to build your Bitcoin and altcoin portfolio. Again, it's been Mike Klingler. I look forward to seeing our future videos.